Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett. My guest today is a superstar of the LA improv scene, Dan Lippert. You know him from his sketch and improv team, Big Grande, who also podcasts as The Teacher's Lounge, as well as the podcast ManDogPod, which he co-hosts with our very own Ryan Rosenberg. He has 2 podcasts on CBB World, Hey Randy and Eat, Pray, Dunk, and he's on the UCB house team Winslow and plays with ASCAT. Dan is one of those formidable players who never seems to have a bad scene, so I was excited to crawl into his brain and get a little glimpse at his process and how he sees improv. This, of course, is just the first half of this episode. There's double the episode if you become a subscriber over at yesalso.supercast.com. Once you become a subscriber, Supercast will walk you through the very quick and easy process of linking the bonus content to your regular player so you never have to visit Supercast again. It'll just shuttle everything to your regular playlist. Thank you to those of you who have already subscribed. You are what's helping to keep this show going, and we are so grateful. We also have video versions of our episodes up on YouTube now, so you can check those out and subscribe for free. And you can keep spreading the word to your improv communities as we still try to find our audience. And now, let's get to Dan Lippert. Dan, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hi. This is a long time coming. You're one of the best improvisers around.
Honored. It's right back at you.
Back at you.
No,
right.
Stop.
Compliment tennis.
I had pictured in my head that Ryan would be in here, and he just left to walk Frankie. And it feels so much more vulnerable already.
Oh, shoot.
To just be 2 people sitting across from each other.
With him as just as an observer would feel safer?
So, maybe, yeah. I'm just feeling that in my body right now. Where I'm like, oh, we're just 2 people sitting across from each other.
We can call him back.
Yeah, could we?
Do you want to?
No,
okay,
I'm
all
kidding,
right.
no.
That's interesting. I wonder if like that I immediately draw a line to being a performer, like feeling safe with an audience there.
Yeah.
But when you're doing something just as like when I've had to rehearse a monologue for an audition and I'm doing it just to one person, terrified.
It's so
But if
scary.
it's a room of people, fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can, I don't know why. I
Yeah.
guess the audience makes it almost anonymous.
Yeah, or waters down the attention.
Yeah.
Or like there's many different opinions, so it's not just a judgment.
That's true. Do you have that with, I have it with feel great doing shows, but if someone I know is in the audience, I am worse because I'm only picturing their response instead of like an anonymous group of people's response.
Yes. And I think I've talked on this podcast about like being like I don't get nervous a ton for like shows just on at large. Like I'm doing enough shows that it's like it's just fun now.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's like a quote important person in the audience, but that important person could be like my brother who like never comes to show so like. Yeah, the as soon as someone that whose opinion I care about or who I want to have a good show in front of so that they can see what I do.
Yeah.
Then I'm nervous.
Have you ever gotten a response from someone who came to your show that made you feel bad, even if they weren't like negative?
I'm sure I have.
Yeah.
But I can't remember like specific instances. But especially in those early days, there's like those non compliments, like where I think Steve Martin used to do a bit about this, where it's like, you sure were out there, or like, wow.
You all kind of dress the same. That's interesting.
Yeah. Or like a question instead of a compliment, like, so how long do you all rehearse for this? Or,
I couldn't do it.
Right.
That's all I'll say is I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it, and neither could you guys. I couldn't do it as a great one.
My last, I was dating someone once, and I did, like, early in the times of when I was doing ASCAT, where it's like the way it worked at the time, for me at least, was you feel the hierarchy of the show based on when you get invited to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, the show's at 8, I'm getting the 6:30 invite, someone dropped out. And I'm always being like, I'm totally open all the time so that I can do this if it comes up. And so I did it, and the cast was like Gil Ozeri, Adam Pally, like I think Gabrus, like people I look up to.
Yeah.
And also people who I feel are could be judgmental or mean. Like that's my projection onto them. And I had such a bad show because I was trying to improvise like how I thought they would like me.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
You were auditioning for your castmates.
Yes.
In a show that you had already been cast in.
Yes, yes. To be like, see, do I belong with you guys? Which made me not belong.
Yeah.
But I remember after the show, I was just driving my girlfriend and I like fully shut down. Like I needed her at the time to be like, you're so, I don't know what I needed. Because if she was like, you were good, I'd be like, you're lying. But if she's like, you were bad, I'd be like, why would you tell me that? But I wasn't able to like dig into my own feelings and be like, here's how I felt about that show. Let me say it out loud.
Yeah.
So I just have like a very specific memory of just stewing.
So I see why this started with my last. Were you about to say my last girlfriend I will ever have?
Yes. Now nothing ever hurts.
Yeah, you're invincible. And this is why you live in that weird old house up on the hill with the broken windows.
It's actually fine.
Oh, great.
It's fine.
Then I'm happy for you.
Yeah. When the fire happened, I didn't have to think of anybody.
You know what? Too soon and also hilarious. Where do you want to start?
I get to choose.
Yeah. Why not?
Let me sip my
I will
Starbucks.
start with a drink of coffee.
I guess I'll start with a compliment.
Oh.
I'm a big fan of the show.
Cool.
I am envious of the show because it's so natural.
Oh.
And you're such a active, thoughtful listener.
Cool.
That it brings out something in people, and I get a lot from it when I listen to it.
Sorry, I zoned out. What were you just saying?
I get a lot from the show. You're an active listener. You are plugged in. You never zone out.
Huh. That's great.
Can you put your phone down while I'm talking about this?
I'm busy.
Okay,
but
right.
Once I finish this, I can put my phone down.
Okay.
What is the pangram of... Yeah.
It's flour. Flour is what you're looking for.
Great. That's such a compliment. The show is so fun to do, and it's endlessly amazing to me how like I never tire of it, and these are not boring. The conversation is about the same thing over and over, but never feels boring.
Yeah.
I learn something new every time. It feels like I'm in free grad school. So yeah, it's cool that you're also getting something valuable out of it.
It's nice. And a lot of people I coach, I'll bring up an episode and they'll be like, I heard that. People are taking a lot from it, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm honored to be a part of the show.
Cool, man. So you first entered my awareness as you were in a practice group that I was coaching.
Tall Boys, I think.
Tall Boys.
Yeah.
That was the 3-person group.
Allison Fields and Rachel Bogert and myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would practice in the living room of my apartment with Jim Woods on McCadden Place.
Yeah.
At the time, I had 13 practice groups a week, and Jim had something like 8 or 9.
Oh,
and we were
God.
on like this weird rotation of like we would have to check in with like what practices and when we would have to go to other people's living rooms and when they would come to ours. But our house was like this thoroughfare. Our neighbors must have thought like something insane was happening.
Because people aren't just coming in and out, like all different types of people coming in and out, but they're coming in and like kind of yelling a little bit.
There's arguments,
and, like,
there's sounds of orgasms, there's laughing, there's like people mooing like cows, like
and then just really quiet, like people being dressed down or being told what they did right and wrong, where they're like, what is this part of the orgy?
Right. Yeah. What? God, fucking remind me never to go to that key party.
My memories of that is at some point someone had started either living out of you or Jim's car. I think out of Jim's car when he was out of town.
Yes.
And I remember you had...
To be clear, not someone of our
no,
invitation.
Somebody...
A neighbor noticed that someone was coming and going from Jim's car in the garage.
Yes.
That was covered in dust, so you couldn't see. It was like a sealed room. Yeah. Okay, so keep going. Sorry.
You had the lights, the like string lights.
Yep.
And I thought that was a cool vibe.
I loved when bars would put up Christmas lights around Christmas, but then hated when they would take them down. And I was like, wait, I'm an adult. I can just buy lights and have them up year round.
I can have Christmas all the time.
Yeah. So that became a fixture in that apartment. And then my next one for like 15 years, I had like old incandescent rainbow bulb Christmas lights lining every room of
wow.
my...
It's a great vibe. I pitched it to my last girlfriend ever. And she was like, "That feels kind of like collegey," and I was like, "Oh." But I liked it.
And to that I say, so? Yeah.
College is cool.
Yeah. I mean, couches are collegey, too. We still use them.
That's true.
TV, very featured in college.
Jersey sheets.
Jersey sheets is such a good detail. Whoa, I can sleep in T-shirts.
I can sleep in stretchy T-shirts, and I've never been made aware of, like, breathability yet.
Too stretchy, I would say, is my review of the jersey sheets I had.
Stretchy for me for a while was it. It's like if your shirt is stretchy, if the sheet is stretchy, that means you're like comfortable.
Stretchy shoes.
Yeah.
Stretchy car.
I'm in a one of those buses, the accordion buses now.
Brilliant.
And then and then Huckle.
Yeah.
Where I have a very specific memory.
This is my dog.
That is a good window. Your dog. A good window into what I'm like is when you found the dog, you were like, hey, can you believe the dog's name was Greg? You were like bothered by it. That was and I like couldn't figure out why that was weird in the moment. And so I was just like, yeah, that is weird. But like I couldn't support the idea.
Why? Do you not think it's weird?
It didn't like it wouldn't have struck me. I would have if someone was like, this is my dog Greg, I'd be like, oh, that's a funny name for a dog.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have retold the story.
Right.
But I remember like when somebody you admire like has an opinion and you have to be like, okay, that's the right opinion. I have to figure out why.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is unusual. Yeah.
Do you like me now?
Right. Now are my scenes funny, Coach? He is very much could be a Greg now that I know his personality.
Yeah.
In fact, I do believe that he is a professor that stumbled into, like, drank the wrong potion and turned into a dog, and he is trying to find his wife and urgently get her a message to bring him the antidote.
Oh my God.
That is his backstory.
And so you're kind of the villain.
I'm the villain. His name probably was Greg as a professor. I changed it to Huckle. I'm making him more of a dog, and he's so demeaned, and he's like urgently,
When you found him, he like saw his wife across the street. They
Yes.
were gonna connect, and they were like,
right.
Oh my gosh.
But what Fernie and Berg saw was a dog running into traffic, and they thought they were rescuing him.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Penelope was never to be seen again.
Poor Penelope, poor Greg.
Oh
but
my
you're
God.
happy.
I love my dog. But what I want to say, so I'll start with a compliment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that was it.
Great. I still like it.
What I want to say is you came in like in that practice group, like totally new to my awareness, but so good at improv.
Thank you.
And you were one of those students that I was like, I don't know how to like make you better.
Oh,
like,
I'm so flattered.
You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm sure now that you've been teaching and coaching, you've had those people come up too where you're like, oh, you're fantastic. You're so much funnier than me. Like, how can I improve what you're doing? You know?
It's the person that you're like, I'm not saying this about me, but the people that I notice, you're grateful they're there because you can be like, see how that worked, like to everyone else. Sometimes with a group, it's like, oh, if everybody's kind of like in struggle mode, they don't know what the success looks like.
Yes.
And so it's hard to have like a North Star. And so it is like refreshing when someone like that is on a group.
Yeah, you're one of those players that, and I have it like when I see you on a team as well, like a fully baked team, like Winslow, like you always know the way through a scene. You always know what to do that will be helpful, and you're like the person with the lantern that's like, I found the exit in the cave.
Oh,
it's this way, you know. My question to you out of that is, does that feel conscious? Does that feel correct to you? Is that something that like you feel like you can see the like analysis of everything, and or is it just these are your instincts and there you go?
That's a good question. Or maybe it's just a question that stumped me, so I'm saying it's a good question.
Yeah.
I think improv always made sense to me the way we do it at UCB. Like whatever the recipe was like, oh, this is probably the recipe I would have made if I invented it myself, just natural, not even as like a compliment to myself, but just like it felt easy and normal.
Yeah.
And I'm a like good student, I think. So it would just be like, all right, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And so I think, I don't know, the things we were doing came naturally. And I also think I had the benefit of a lot of people are just like, find improv and they like the community, or it's their first time performing. And like, I had done theater in high school and college. I had done some like short form at school. I had done long form at USC. So I think I also came in with like 6 years more experience than everybody else.
Which really does help.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. You were a part of Fracas, right?
Yes.
Yeah. With Devin Field, is that right?
Devin Field, yeah. He was a freshman when I was a senior. And Jacob Reed and Justin Michael were some of our contemporaries. But we had an improv team at USC, and our big thing was every year we would do what we called the biggest all student performer improv festival. So like colleges from across the country would come and perform for the weekend. We would do workshops with like mostly UCB teachers and panels with like people on TV and improvisers and all that stuff.
I remember going and performing at that, or maybe just in general with the UCB Tour Co. Like you guys hosted us. You might not have been
Second
there, but
Nature.
Yeah,
that was the group. Did you perform at Ground Zero?
I don't know.
That's
there was
the coffee shop where we performed. Was it a coffee shop? It was like a big
I feel
space.
like there was a door that led right outside to like a courtyard area or something, and then the stage was right there by that door.
They might have moved where they were doing stuff. Yeah.
But don't trust this memory. Okay. Like I could be okay. Great.
No, yeah, they moved around a lot because Ground Zero was a working coffee shop. So they would just be blending milkshakes in the middle of your improv scene or whatever.
Incredible.
Like
trying to do like a really quiet 2-person scene. Listen, Dad, I wanted
it. And people just ordering full volume and stuff like that. And the name was a big source of comedy because they continued to call it Ground Zero after 9/11.
Yeah, when I worked in Amsterdam, when I was at Boom Chicago, my last year there, which was 2005, so well after 9/11, we did a corporate show that was launching the debut of the brand new like banking building there. They hired us to come do this like grand opening for them, and their building was called the World Trade Center.
What?
And we did a corporate show there. And the very first suggestion of the show, like our first game was always word at a time stories. So it's like we'd get a name and an object. So like now we'll tell you the story of Jan and the screwdriver, but we'll do it one word at a time. The very first can we get a name of someone who couldn't be here today, like Andrew or Saskia or Osama? Okay, well, so you have a friend named Osama bin Laden.
Sure.
Great, we'll fucking take it.
Yeah.
This is the story of Osama bin Laden and the wine corkscrew,
That story, as I'm hearing it, it's like when a dog walks in the room and sees 6 people and doesn't know who to run up to. Where I'm like, there are too many specifics that I want to deal with here. The corporate short form gig is already like somebody down the line didn't understand the group of people that were going to be watching the show.
Right. Or the setup. I have to paint more context. No chairs in the room, all standing. We were interrupting their like wine happy hour. So they were like standing around drinking, and there were some high top tables that they were standing around in circles. So some people had their backs to us.
Oh man!
Brightly lit, like light streaming through the skylights. It's like 4 p.m.
How are you ever able to not connect the quality of that show, where you are set up to fail, to your own ego? Like, are you able to leave and be like, if this goes well, great. If not, it's not my fault.
Yeah, it was like total detachment from that. And that's actually the gift of those corporate shows, because they tip so far into the abyss of like things you can't control and things that are nightmarish for comedy.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, it can't be my fault. But you know what I mean?
You'd have to be like one of the greater performers. to make this work.
Yeah, and even then, I'm not sure that it would be like a good show.
Yeah.
Like you could like come away kind of like having saved face, but even then, it's like these people don't want this.
No.
So you've already failed before it started.
They're just like, oh, this is my chance to like go talk to that woman over there and try to cheat on my wife. And then it's like, no, you got a comedy show. You got to watch first.
Hey, everybody! Yeah. The other thing about that show is that so I was the I was one of the corporate script writers, but Brendan Hunt was the corporate script writer on this. I was the point person of the show, which means like I arrive and I shake hands with the person who organized it, and we talk about like the layout and the plan while everybody else is down in the green room like drinking Diet Cokes and whatever. And I'm like, okay, and this is what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. While I'm talking to this woman, and we have scripts that Brendan has written, you know, based on the info that they gave and whatever. So these sketches, the other performers are memorizing now in the green room. And I'm like, so then we'll come on and do the sketch. And she's like, Jan and Michelle are here with their scripts and they know their lines. So can they run it with you? When can they run it? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, these are the architects from the building that the sketches are about. So they know they've been working very hard on their lines. No. And so can they work it on the stage before they perform? I was like, oh dear. Like talk about like massive wires being crossed. Yeah. These people thought that because the sketches were about them and they were named in the sketches, that meant they were performing. And I was like, oh, no, we're the comedians. We do the sketches. She goes, no. We hired you so that they do the sketches. I was like, no.
Oh, my God.
We can't do that. And I was like, well, so you guys, and I'm trying to like frame it, sell it. Like, I'm like, the good news is you guys are off the hook. You can relax now. You can watch and enjoy, and we're professionals. And she's like, no, their wives and families are coming to see them perform. This is why we hired you. They are performing. And I was like, you're going to have to call our corporate office right now.
Oh, my
So,
God.
like, and this woman starts screaming on the phone. And then they made me sit on the stage while she's like yelling at me. She's like, you are ruining our night. And I was like, I don't.
This is the greatest disaster at the World Trade Center has ever seen.
You are flying a plane into our evening. I'm putting this on the news. We must. So yeah. So
did they end up doing it?
They did not. Like after like, you know, an hour on the phone with the people in our office, and I'm sure like poor Saskia in the office was like, we'll issue you a full refund or whatever, and but they'll still do a great comedy show, and we're so sorry. I'm sure it was something like that.
So that's go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, but then so that was all the prelude to the show, and I now, because I've spent an hour dealing with this, I haven't been able to learn the lines for the sketches, and I have to book it down to the dressing room, and I have like 8 minutes to learn 3 sketches with my teammates. I think it was Heather Campbell and Robbie Andrusplord, and also I haven't gotten dinner because they like got dinner during this. Then we run up frantically to like do the show, and the first thing of the show is, can we have a suggestion? And it's Osama bin Laden. So yeah, just there. Yeah, but the gift of those shows is there's nothing you can do, and so yeah, it's devoid. It's detached from your ego. Yeah.
Do you ever do the math in your head of how much you go like, all right, here's what I'm gonna get paid. So here's what I'm making per hour of this argument.
I mean,
so then I feel a little better, because that's what I have to do sometimes.
Yeah, that does help. We weren't getting paid enough to do that. It was like, you know, 100 euros for the whole day or something. Man. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't really calculate.
Nothing is.
Yeah, but what you come away with is this amazing. I mean, that to me, like the story is worth it. While you're going through hell like that, you're like, this is gonna be so funny after.
Yes.
We are gonna like lose it on the train going home from this.
Yes.
And you come away with these like battle scars. It's hard to explain. Like, have you done corporate improv before or things like that?
Not a ton. Like with the big one with Big Grande is San Francisco Sketch Fest was always a disaster.
Why?
Did you ever do sketch there?
Not sketch, just improv.
So there was a theater called The Dark Room.
Okay.
Did you ever do a show that it was in the Mission?
I don't think so.
And the people that ran it lived there. They had a dog that was just walking around that only had one eye. And every year you would come with the sketch, you'd come with the tech stuff, you'd come with the CD, and they'd give you a half hour, and they'd be like, this doesn't accept USBs, this computer, or whatever. So the tech would be a nightmare. They would be mad at you immediately, and then the show would be a disaster. You'd be like, it's really important that there's music between every sketch. We can't just have silence.
Right.
No.
Doesn't happen.
So we had one where that was happening for a Big Grande sketch show where like every sketch, silent in between, we're changing backstage, kind of laughing. They're fucking up our tech cues. But then before, I shouldn't tell the story because he might be embarrassed, but like before one of our last sketches, we're changing in silence, and Drew Tarver just yells, "This theater sucks!" And then our last sketch, it's like the two characters we ended up doing for the Teachers Lounge is 4 teachers, and the premise is just like the cheerleading squad was in a car accident, so we're going to do the dance tonight. So it's just us in costume as like 50-year-old teachers dancing to like this heavily choreographed dance. And so we're introducing it. There's a cue in there. The cue doesn't play. So just improvising, we go like, no worries, Denise, take your time, just trying to like, and the guy that runs the tech booth just goes, "I'm working on it."
Oh.
And so it's just like, okay, that also took all the energy away. But this theater sucks is now like our little catchphrase memory of that experience, that trauma.
But doesn't it, like, the trauma of it, like, now you have this kind of, like, war wound, like, you've been through a comedy trench together, like, right? It's fun to have those little, like, stories, and it's, you see each other for, like, your personalities all come out. You know what I mean? This, like, intensity, like traveling with family or whatever, where it's, like, the best and worst of everybody comes out. And so it's very funny to see your friends at their extremes. Yes. What's your role in those cases?
Quiet problem solver.
Okay.
Quiet frustration.
Uh-huh.
Travel. My mom moved here from Israel. She met my dad. And it was a whole thing where she like maybe wanted to move the family back to Israel, blah, blah, blah. So every year we would fly to Israel once, like see her family, see my family on her side. And traveling was always so stressful. Like she goes to extremes of stress. So my brother and I were the counter to that of just like, it's okay. Me at 8 years old.
Right.
It's okay. We just got to do this, this, and this.
Oh, your
being
therapist.
Out.
Your therapist has a field day with this.
Oh, it's the whole thing. It's every session. She's literally sitting on a pile of money about the same conversation for 7 years.
Yeah.
Just like
she can do a Ferris Bueller and just like put a dummy of herself that nods and hit play on okay. Do you see how you're falling into the same roles and you're responsible for someone else's?
Yes. Why won't it change? Shaking the dummy.
Yeah.
Then we kiss passionately.
She has no idea that you have this torrid relationship because it's with the dummy.
I'm winking in my Venmo payments to her. What's going on here?
Yeah, you see her in the grocery with like wiggly eyebrows, and she's like, "What? What is there a particularly good deal on salami?"
I get it, HIPAA. I get it.
Yeah. We'll talk later.
Or I will. You've been very quiet lately.
Right? God, it's so funny. So your role now in like every group you're in is quietly calming things, but you're internally frustrated.
Yeah, which I think full circle to the improv thing is like when you say that about like, oh, where the scene's got to go, like being aware of the moves and stuff like that. I have kind of a bird's eye view of everything. I disconnect.
Yeah.
And I go like, what do we have to do to make this work? So I'm very plugged into other people.
Yeah.
I'm very plugged into like the moment of what needs to happen. But I would say my deficit is like it took me a while to learn how to contribute myself to things because I was always in problem solver mode.
You're looking at the piece as a whole and what other people need from you to make their thing work, but you're sacrificing like being in your own body and emotion and having discoveries as your own character.
Yeah. And being able to trust that someone can handle me the way I'm handling them.
Yeah, interesting.
Like that if I do some character that I don't know where it's going or it's going to fuck up the scene somehow, that someone else will do what I do, which is like, okay, I've got to ground this a little bit.
Yeah. That speaks also to like your alignment with the UCB view of things, that like something needs to be taken care of and made to work rather than, okay, so we're in a shitstorm. Who cares? We're discovering and we're vulnerable and it may work or it may not, but we're all improvising. That UCB model of like, well, but the goal is to have a successful scene that makes the audience laugh and is cohesive and heightens well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Like if I don't achieve that, I don't know that I would. I think I like that kind of like flowy interplay, but I don't think I was ever. I think it takes a lot more skill, and so I never like witnessed it enough to at a place where I was drawn to it.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
No, totally. The UCB sort of model, I think, has a higher success rate. If you see the other way, the more nebulous, discovery-based, loose improv, if you see that done really well, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
But not a ton of people are doing it really well, especially while you're coming up through classes and whatever. And you don't have, unless you are unless you are able to point to like what you were saying in the beginning, like see this person doing it, that person on the team or that show that you're watching. If you don't have a template or an example or a North Star, then it's like, well, what are I doing?
That's my soapbox right now. Is like I think it's a big deficit in the improv world. Is I felt very lucky looking back that like if I'm trying to learn what I'm doing on Herald Night at UCB, which is ultimately to try to get a house show at UCB, I can go to like Sentimental Lady once a week. I can go see this.
Plug for my team.
Of course, I had to. Like the Smokes, Codvoy, like Shitty Jobs, like whatever groups were doing the best version of something. I had an affordable option every night of the week to see it, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I could go like, oh, I love that they did that. How can we do that in our thing? And I feel like there's a deficit in like the like upper middle and lower class right now, where I don't see a lot of good like middle class comedy that is like trying things that people can see and then go do. I don't know what I would point to for students right now.
Interesting. What's the solution to that, or what do you think caused that? Is it like it's watered down because everybody's kind of from the same generation, and the theater needs to diversify with more like veteran teams, or?
I think it was a perfect storm. I think like the pandemic like killed 3 years of growth.
Yeah.
I think people came out of the pandemic less excited about going to things live everywhere. Like every industry is struggling that way.
I don't like that pandemic happened. I don't like it.
Let me think about it. Tell me more. I guess I
don't think that it was good for things.
No, totally. I get that you feel that. I'm not really hearing why yet.
It's like, I don't know. Like I think it was bad, like personal, like on a personal level, and also like a collective level, and then like also like health, and then like also like.
I don't know, because I feel like it's so good that we as a society are just pretending it never happened and are bottling it up, and all of the stress and anxiety from it is coming out in very weird, scary, crazy ways.
Your therapist is calling.
Ooh, baby.
You have the logo of the dummy as her photo.
What do you think?
She has tennis balls for eyes. Those red lips are just sticks of lipstick.
Very hard. Very hard red lips.
Yeah, interesting. So the pandemic killed 3 years of growth. So there's a chasm there.
I think it, I had 2 months where I was the artistic director of UCB before it opened. And there was a huge focus on more equity and monthly shows. That was kind of the idea. And I think the miss of that is consistency and affordability.
Yes.
I think that's kind of a problem.
Consistency meaning I know that Shitty Jobs is every Sunday night at 8, and I can go to that every week. If it's like we're the third Thursday of the month, but then every 3 months it changes to like now we're the first Monday.
Yes.
Then, it's hard for an audience. It's hard for a show to build an audience.
It's hard to build an audience, which makes it hard to experiment, take risks, and even hard for like if I'm teaching a group and I'm like, go see Sentimental Lady, and they're like, what night? And I'm like,
I don't know.
Can you even tell me right now?
No. Well, we do have a show tonight.
Good.
So now we are whatever this is, the first Friday.
Friday.
No, sorry, this is the third Friday.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that I am empathetic to why it is happening. Mm-hmm. But I think that it is. We have now seen that experiment, and it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think the work of equity is really hard work and really focused work. And I think that there was kind of a flamethrower solution of just like let everyone perform whenever, take away some of the legacy shows because they've been allowed too much
They've
space.
Had their turn, and they have too many. They're taking up too much oxygen at this stage, and
but I think there's a lack of awareness there of like. It would be like being like, well, everyone wants to see Will Ferrell, but he's been in too many movies. Just put some 22-year-old guy up there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, why aren't those movies selling? And it's like, well, because Will Ferrell worked for 30 years to be that good. That's kind of how I feel right now.
Right. And we're doing a disservice to that 22-year-old who wants to be as good as Will Ferrell because now he doesn't have the North Star of like things that can be done or like a style to aspire to or whatever. Yeah.
I think that, I don't know. I think that, how do you feel? I'll say I feel incredibly creatively drained. And I think it's from like years of doing it and doing a weekly podcast of Improv with Ryan where it's like I'm just doing improv all the time. I'm coaching it all the time. And so I'm not experimenting really. I'm not like inspired.
Yeah.
And I feel maybe it's projection because it's how I'm feeling, but I'm seeing that. I don't really see anyone come up to me and be like, you got to see this show that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was always at least one show. Maybe I'm being like a MAGA, like things were so much better back then. But there was always one show you could go see that was like inspiring.
Yeah, I personally don't feel drained. I feel like lit up and hungry. But
Good.
I do feel that there's like that the soil, the fertility of the soil is spread in such a way that this is that analogy. We're going to end that analogy. It's not soil. There's
the fertility of the ova.
Yes. Okay. Here's something. No. What else is fertile? I'm not losing fertile.
Crescent.
Yes. Okay. So the Tigris and the Euphrates are between the two of them. The audience is being watered. This is what I feel like. That there are so many shows, which is a great thing, both at UCB and all these other theaters. And the Clubhouse and the Annex and shared experience and that there's like the audience is kind of watered down in a way. Mm-hmm. I'm not advocating for a less robust indie scene by any means, but I think the spread of everything, the scope of everything is large, and that times the factor of confusing schedules and inconsistent nights means that there's kind of this like meandery audience. And I think that prices are higher now, which is limiting, and that people are leaving their house less post-COVID, which is detrimental. And we've lost that sort of we've lost the focused laser feeling of like an audience everybody's going to Hibeki Drysdale, and everybody's going to ASCAT, and everybody's going to Herald Night. Maybe there are shows that have that, but I feel like we struggle to sell out a show now, and we show up and do a show for 30 people, and it used to be 115 every time, no question. And so like I feel like the energy and the vibrancy is like becoming watered down in a way that feels less thrilling. Does that make sense?
100%. I think that is fully a part of the fertile soil.
My seed is like ready to grow new corn. I feel very inspired. Part of it is this podcast. I want to try new ways of playing based on these conversations and forms I'm hearing about from other people. And I'm like, cool, I want to be new again. I want to learn stuff. I want to try these new ways of playing. But like the soil isn't as fertile because the audiences are less. Not that you need a big audience, but it feels like the energy and the electricity is missing a little bit.
I agree with that. And I'd curious. I've had to look at it with myself, and I started to ask groups I coach this, like, why do you do this? Because I feel like there's so much going on, and you can get caught in the routine of like, I do this workshop on this day, I do this class this day, I do this show this day, whatever, and I want to get on this team at this place, and I want to do it all right, and I feel like I'm missing a little bit of seeing people's like creative spark and all of that, of like, did you get into this just to be told you could do it somewhere? Or is there something you want to say and do with your comedy that like you're striving towards? And I feel that a little bit missing too.
Yeah.
With what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the spark that initiates the Big Bang versus just, no, I want to be a planet over there.
Yeah.
It's like, but what made it go over there?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like the struggle that I have right now is like so much of it for me of performing was acceptance and feeling like seen and loved by anonymous people, and feeling like I could express myself. And I feel now that my interpersonal relationships, I have that.
Right.
Interesting. And I'm a little more in touch with like why I perform. So I'm not doing 6 shows a week anymore because it's not like I need someone to tell me I'm good to feel good about myself.
You're not feeding a vacancy in yourself. You've filled the void, and so now like you don't have that reason anymore.
Yeah.
So what reason remains? Or is that why you're feeling a little bit sparkless?
That's why I'm feeling a little bit sparkless, I think. And that there was always the train tracks or the rubric or whatever felt like, okay, you go do this, you do your Herald team, then you get graduated potentially, you got a house team, and then maybe you get to be on ASCAT, and then you get to be on a TV show, and then you get to write on a show, you get to create a show, you get to be in movies, and the fact that second half is like dead, and the image I had as a kid of what that was going to look like is totally changed.
Dead because
just the industry, like the fact of like, 15 years ago I could have been auditioning for all the NBC shows, and now there's no NBC comedies or whatever. Like just that is empty.
Yeah,
means that like the boss or the god that I invented that I was going to have to impress next, like is not looking for me anymore.
Yeah,
and so I have to be like, why did I want to be on TV? Just money and fame, or did I want to like create comedy that was meaningful?
Right.
And that I cannot still do by myself if I can find funding, but it's more work, it feels like.
Is there a third option where, rather than just to impress people or have money and fame, and rather than like, I'm putting something meaningful in the world, is there a middle lane where it's like, I do it because it's fun and I like finding things funny, and the way I perceive the world is through a comedic lens, and I love doing bits with my friends and finding things funny.
Yeah.
I think that's why I do it.
It's a great way to see the world.
Live in you? That's not how you see the world?
No, it's a great way to see the world. It's very optimistic and nice. And it feels like I wish I had more of that in my instinct when I'm looking at the idea of like committing to doing a show.
Wow, it's so interesting to hear that you don't feel that, because you are so quick with a bit, you're so observant, you always find the funny. I've been on ManDog before, and we can like sit down and literally like riff for like 45 minutes on one idea.
Yeah.
And have so much fun, and you're like giggling the whole time. Like it's interesting to hear that you don't feel that that's your water source.
It certainly is. I'm trying to piece together, I think, even in this moment, like the feeling that I'm having, and I think it might just be that I connect a lot of the work with achievement. And I feel like a lack of achievement approval coming in.
Yep.
And so like, yeah, that show is like gives us life, like ManDog or like Big Grande stuff, especially in that pandemic, which I guess was so awful. But we got to like see people on Zoom, and every time someone came on Zoom, it would be like, at the end, people would be like, thank God we did this. I felt so lonely, like I didn't know I needed this. And then when we started doing in person again, just like you get to connect with people that you admire over and over again, like this podcast. And it's like, that is enlivening. I do like that a lot. But the only thing I focus on in my head is like the numbers of people that listen to it and the amount of money it brings me. It's like very achievement based.
Yeah, interesting. Which also probably connects to your childhood.
Okay.
Smooch.
Stay nice.
I want to stick on Big Grande for a minute, but then I also want to I want to really crack into like how you see scenes and how you do what you do. But we have a listener question from one of our subscribers. William says, hold on one second. R.E. ManDog, any advice on sustaining a relationship with a collaborator?
Oh, good question, William. Same as life relationships, like friendships and romantic relationships, I think is like open communication. Not letting things build up, and valuing that a good relationship doesn't mean that everything is easy all the time. It means that like you're willing to put in the work to communicate on things that might be hard to say or do, and be open and honest about it.
I love that.
Yeah, I think because I used to think for a long time that it was like I'll gravitate towards people who don't make me feel emotionally challenged. Like we agree on almost like Ryan and I. That's why we got together. It's like we agree on everything. We think the same things are fun. We watch the same things.
Easy. Yeah.
But it's like anything. Like my dream. I feel like fantasy is like everyone is like me and does the world like me and responds to things like me and asks questions like me and whatever, and that's not reality. Yeah. And so it's like learning that it's two people working together on something. Yeah.
And when you talk about this open communication, so Big Grande is a longtime sketch group, and you guys do an improvised podcast, the Teacher's Lounge. But what sorts of things are you communicating about? Do you mean like if you have a differing view of like what the next show should be about or whatever, or is it like more personal than that? Like not liking the way someone travels or something?
Yeah, both. Yeah. I think it's everything. It's like I connect. A lot of coaching Harold for me is like I like to coach relationships, because I feel like that was a dearth in what we received, and maybe it's not what the program should be, but it's like putting together 8 a lot of times strangers, giving them a goal that they put a lot of pressure on, and then going like good luck, but really it's like a family, and you don't choose your family, and you have to learn that it's not that you're right and other people are wrong. It's that everyone has a goal they want and a way, something they're bringing to this, and you have to know what each other's are and if you can meet each other on those. Yeah. And with Big Grande, a lot of it was like expectation, where I think when you start a group and you're 26 and like we did a 3-on-3 tournament that Convoy put together, and it was like a manager was at the show and was like, come pitch us some stuff. And then we went there and they were like, the Workaholics guys sat right here. You know what I mean? Yeah. The manager didn't represent. So I was like, why is this a brag?
This chair that we bought from Nick's on Sunset used to be sat in by someone else famous.
How about that? But you know, there's that you feel like hot and new, and we would like go pitch shows to Comedy Central and they would feel like excited. And it was like, great, this is it. This group of 4 guys is we're going to work together forever, and then we're all focused on this as our main career point.
Yeah.
And then it was like a learning experience to be like, oh, that's like, I need the group. I wanted that. But that not to air other people's business, but like some people are like, no, this group is a part of my overall thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
And neither of us are wrong.
Yeah.
But I never expressed what I needed for years. And so you can get resentful of somebody for not just doing what you want.
Right. Not having the same priorities or seeing things the same way or whatever. Yeah.
And so I think like sitting down with someone and being like, here's what I want, here's what it looks like. And then either being like, here's what I want, here's what it looks like, and I'm willing to meet you in yours, or like, I'm not willing to. Yeah. And then you kind of learn how to manage that stuff.
Yeah. I love drawing a line, but when you said like it's just like life relationships, it's like all the same ingredients that make a good friendship or a good romantic partnership or whatever go into the same soup with a collaboration that lasts, you know.
And trust, yeah. I never thought of myself as an untrusting person. Like I've never been in relationships and been like, who's that guy talking to you? Like what? Like that doesn't bother me at all. But I realized I have deep trust issues that anybody will be able to like handle me.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing with improv and comedy too, where it's like those conversations help you trust each other.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to be good at comedy with a group, is you have to be able to like fully do what you think is interesting in the moment and know that those 3 people, 1 person, 7 people are going to go like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And not like, what is this?
Yeah. When you said that you were like coaching relationships as a Herald coach, did you have specific like advice or hacks or exercises or what would you do to foster that and nurture that?
The first thing I do with the team I learned with Second Nature in college is I have everybody hang out one-on-one, like schedule something so the whole group has spent a one-on-one
time. Oh, interesting. Yeah, cool.
And just get to know each other a little bit. Then usually like 4 months into the Herald program, usually for first year teams, is when something gets crunchy. People are in their heads, they're like learning all this stuff. Something happens where people start to get blamed. People start to be like, this one person is the whole problem for the team.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff I try to nip in the bud right away, which is like, this feeling of like everybody is holding on so tight and wants so bad. And you have to be like, everybody here wants to achieve the same thing, but you have to do it together. I felt for a while when I was on Herald Night that I knew everything. I had this feeling of like, I know what should happen in every scene. When I initiate, I know where the scene should go. It's not improv.
Yeah.
That's stand-up.
Yeah.
And it's not collaborative.
Right. You're the director rather than the fellow explorer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's teaching people just kind of through language about that, but then usually having kind of like a sit down with the group that I kind of monitor that is like, what's everybody's issues right now? How can we express them in ways that are like, here's what I want that's not getting met. Not like, you always talk during the opening too much. Because people find those little things and they fixate on them.
Yeah.
And if you talk shit about somebody that does something, then every time they do anything kind of like it, you're going to be reminded of it, and
your
it's going to feel worse.
Your brain is primed to notice the negative thing.
Yes.
And so even something that's not that, but maybe rhymes with it.
Yes.
You're like, there it is again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You create like a thesis or a game for somebody.
Right.
And so everything plays into it. And then I just try to get people to get in touch with, I'm basically coaching people to do things that I wish I knew earlier. But I'm trying to give people a language for their feelings and their point of view on everything.
Cool.
So I like tell them to go to shows and not be like, this group was funny. This opening sucked. They felt like they were disconnected. Like I try to get them to really like talk about what they noticed personally.
Give an example. What's the difference?
So when you're like teaching a class, like I feel like sometimes it's like, all right, did you see a show? What'd you think? And it's like, well, it felt like those two people didn't like each other. And it's like, that's not really an improv analysis.
Yeah.
But you can be like, I felt like this initiation was a little off of what they talked about in the opening, and then it made the game feel difficult.
Yeah.
Or like, so being specific, basically.
Yeah.
And watching comedy and being specific about why you like it. And then after shows, like talking about things that worked specifically, so that you're giving yourself a language for your feelings all the time.
Yeah.
And how you're taking things in, so that when things get more heightened, it's not the first time you've had to like talk to each other about it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It also like simultaneously is like helping to codify your comedic point of view.
Yes.
If you're constantly not just saying, I liked it, but I liked it because now you're formulating your own personal voice, or like, oh, I guess I do like big physical choices.
Yes,
or
exactly.
like, yeah, I love how quickly those people got on the same page. I don't do that enough. I'd like to say yes more to simple little things and see where they go. And yeah.
I always think of like for my generation coming up, like Convoy was one of the big ones where because it was like, all right, these are 3 white guys and they're smart. That's what everybody was like. They're so smart.
Yeah.
But then when you actually like watch them,
you're like, actually, they're idiots.
They're idiots. But they're like emotional.
Yeah.
And they make big, strong choices, and they have strong point of view. And it's not just like I think the first time I like got coached by Fernie or had a class with him, I wanted him to think I was smart. But it's like, I'm not going to suddenly know the capital of like Zambia.
Yeah.
So that's not a goal to have.
It's not a playable goal.
Yeah.
You know what you know, and you can observe what you can observe, but you can't do more than that. So that stuff will happen naturally. But yeah, what you can do is commit emotionally or make a strong choice, or that's more playable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I coach actors sometimes. Like Disney hires me to like coach kid actors and teach them improv and help bring that into their like script work and stuff. And I'm often noticing like when kids, or when I should just say when actors read like a log line in a script, they often pick like the not playable adjective. So it'll be like, this kid is nerdy and sweet and whatever, and they're like, yeah, so he's nerdy, so I'm gonna play him nerdy. I'm like, but what does that mean? That's someone else's judgment. That's not playable. But sweet is playable. You can see the world in a sweet. What does sweet mean? It means you want to help people, or it means like you care about animals, or you feel sensitive when someone speaks unkindly about you. But just nerdy, there are going to be 80 different types of nerdy, and that's not that person's personal point of view or drive. That's the world's point of view about them.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't just make sense. It's very thoughtful.
But yeah, but that reminds me of like, I want Fernie to think I'm smart. Smart isn't a playable like point of view as your own personal like way of being, but emotional or or present, or whatever it is, like those other like ways of being are things that you can have in your hands. Yeah.
For part 2 of this episode, go to yesalso.supercast.com. If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod, and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They will see. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.